Mike, so many families of those returning home surely must be relieved.
That could be the understatement of the evening here in Asia.
I'm wondering what kind of reaction there has been in South Korea to this incident.
There was also an overwhelming sense of resentment and anger towards the United States.
And putting billions of dollars of investment at risk. And there is no way to understate the sense of shock that people felt here.
It's actually good to see South Korea take its own citizens back. Okay, we'll send a plane and bring our people back. Dr. Rufin.
As well, and I'm glad about that.
안녕하세요, 원다입니다. 미 이민 당국에 의해 체포 및 구금됐다가 풀려난 한국인 316명이 12일 오후 인천국제공항을 통해 무사히 가족의 품으로 돌아오자 주요 외신들도 이를 속보로 전했는데요. 특히 이번 사태로 미국에 대한 한국 내 여론이 얼마나 악화되었는지를 상세히 보도했습니다. 미국 MBC 뉴스는 미국에게 엄청난 금액을 투자한 한국의 노동자들을 범죄자처럼 취급한 미국 당국을 향해 이런 미국의 참담한 행태가 한국을 분노케 했고 이로 인해 수십억 달러의 투자가 위태로워졌다고 전했죠.
Hundreds of South Korean workers returned home from the U.S. after that immigration raid in Georgia that's now straining relations between the two countries and putting billions of dollars of investment at risk. The workers had been held at a detention facility for much of the past week as the deal was worked out between senior South Korean officials and the White House, including President Trump. He delayed the repatriation flight to find ways to allow the workers to remain in the U.S. These are skilled technicians helping to build a battery facility that's a partnership between Hyundai and LG and will eventually create around 8,500 American jobs. The optics of the raid caused outrage here. The timing of the raid also sensitive, coming amid trade talks. South Korea's president has said there has to be a better system for workers to get visas for the U.S. Otherwise, South Korean companies are going to be hesitant to commit more money. And that's significant considering what's at stake. Already $500 billion in investment in the United States. Already, LG has confirmed that the opening of the battery facility will be delayed for 2 to 3 months now. There will be political fallout from this as well. There is a deep security alliance between the U.S. and South Korea. Tens of thousands of U.S. troops are based here. And there is no way to understate the sense of shock that people felt here in seeing Korean workers treated like criminals. It's why there was so much attention being paid to the scene here today, showing the workers arriving home safely and with dignity, and with President Trump due to visit here next month.
미국 CNN도 한국 내 분노에 주목했는데요. 미국의 행태에 엄청난 충격을 받은 한국이 미국과의 경제협력에 의문을 던지고 있다며 앞으로 한국 기업들이 어떤 대응을 할지 우려했습니다.
More than 300 South Korean nationals detained in a U.S. immigration raid are now back home. A special Korean Air chartered flight carried the workers back from the U.S. They were detained during an ICE raid at a plant under construction in the state of Georgia. It was being built as a joint venture between South Korean giants LG Energy Solution and Hyundai. The raid triggered an outcry from South Korea, a key U.S. ally, and raised questions about foreign investment in the U.S. CNN's Mike Valerio is live for us at South Korea's Incheon International Airport, where Mike, so many families of those returning home surely must be relieved.
That's right, Brian. I think that could be the understatement of the evening here in Asia. And you know, the sentiment that so many of these families have is if you are asked to invest, arrest and the threat of arrest should not be part of that equation of helping out an ally like the United States is being helped by South Korea with its technology sector. So we want to show you the video. We'll have the control room play it with the additional note that a lot of these images, Brian, because of South Korean privacy laws and out of request of the company here, LG Energy Solution, none of the people you're about to see, all 316 of them, none of them have been charged with a crime. So with privacy protections and just the outpouring of emotion, the raw emotion, that's why this video is being blurred. So you see men that are ranging, mostly men, ranging from 20 into their 50s. We're talking about engineers, technicians, not with luggage coming into Incheon International Airport, one of the gateways to Seoul, South Korea, but with clear plastic bags, or mesh bags with all their belongings provided to them by the U.S. government. Such a striking sight. So now the question turns to, what are all these companies going to do, Brian, that are here in South Korea that have future projects in the United States? They do not want anything like this happening to their employees. The president of South Korea, Lee Jae-myung, spoke to some potential feelings of hesitation that businesses might have. Listen to what he said yesterday.
From the perspective of companies, they will be concerned about disadvantageous treatment or facing difficulties when they're building factories in the United States. That could probably have a significant impact on direct investment in the U.S. in the future.
So let's go to the video of another moment, an outcry of emotion. It was a giant banner, almost twice as high, tall as I am, about 6'1". It says, "We're friends, aren't we?" And it's somebody who is supposedly depicted as being from ICE, all in black, chains over one shoulder, an assault-style weapon, and a smiling Donald Trump face. That is one of the myriad strands of emotion of how people are feeling being treated by an ally, the United States, like this, with those indelible images, Brian, from ICE, with people handcuffed, chains around their waist. So really the question is, what, if anything, is going to change about visas between the United States and South Korea? The South Korean president yesterday has said that there are movements to perhaps add more visas, to heighten the visa quotas that are between the United States and South Korea right now, perhaps have a new class of visa. If a business is investing in the United States, they get another visa that's been created to prevent what we saw just a few days ago, Brian.
And we know that the U.S. president will be meeting with South Korea's leader here in the coming weeks. And I know that you will stay on top of that development as Trump tries to somehow smooth over the situation so far.
미국 CBS 뉴스 역시 한국인들의 무사 귀환을 전하며 한국 내 반응이 어떤지에 대해 촉각을 세웠는데요. 미국 내에서는 찾을 수 없는 장비와 기술을 가진 숙련된 기술자들에게 미 이민 단속국이 행한 끔찍한 행태로 인해 한국인들이 얼마나 큰 충격을 받았는지를 전했죠.
Hundreds of South Korean workers detained over alleged visa violations in the U.S. during a massive immigration raid on a Hyundai plant in Georgia last week have returned home this morning. Anna, I'm wondering what kind of reaction there has been in South Korea to this incident and if these folks are being welcomed back home.
Well, Errol, as you can imagine, after a rather shocking ordeal, over the past week, more than 300 South Korean workers touched down at Seoul's Incheon airport this afternoon to cheers, celebration and certainly relief. But there was also an overwhelming sense of resentment and anger towards the United States. As we recall, last Thursday in the U.S. state of Georgia, Homeland Security carried out what it called the biggest worksite raid in the department's history. Of course, it's all part of President Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration. The raid, however, was on a battery plant, a joint venture between Hyundai and LG Energy Solutions to make batteries for electric vehicles. It was part of a multi-billion-dollar investment by these two Korean companies in the state. This is exactly the type of foreign investment that President Trump wants. But 475 foreign workers were arrested, of which 2/3 were Korean. The majority of them were specialised workers, many of them engineers for the construction phase of the plant. They began construction back in 2023 and it was supposed to be completed by the end of the year. And Errol, we heard from the CEO of Hyundai who said that these workers have skills and equipment that they just cannot find in the US. But the problem was they were in the United States on incorrect visas. Now, it's been reported that South Korea has struggled to obtain proper visas for specialist workers in the US. Hence, it fell into this grey area. But I think what happened next was truly shocking to people in South Korea. Those images that were broadcast of workers being arrested, handcuffed and shackled.
더 모닝쇼는 미국에게 막대한 투자를 한 한국을 대하는 미국의 충격적인 행태에 분노하며 미국 우선주의 정책이 오히려 미국 경제를 망치고 있음을 지적했죠. 또한 한국의 단호한 대응에 속이 다 시원했음을 털어놔 눈길을 끌었습니다.
The more than 300 South Koreans who were detained in a massive immigration raid at a Hyundai plant in the United States state of Georgia last week are due to arrive home in South Korea shortly. Now, their return comes as the country's president and Hyundai's chief executive have warned about the impact of this raid. The departure was actually delayed by more than a day because of an instruction from the White House to check whether the workers were willing to remain in the United States to continue working and training Americans, which is what many of them were there doing in the first place before they were arrested and detained.
Korea is one of the U.S.'s South Asian allies, and also they have invested tens of billions of dollars in the battery plant in Georgia, one of the biggest investments in that part of America. And so it was quite shocking and disturbing, even for the people in Georgia who were not quite happy with the immigration invasion of the plant. We've often talked about South Korea workers trying to get some sort of special visas to work in the United States of America. So it's not deliberately, migration that they were trying to hide. They are in the works, or in the area of trying to ensure that they get visas, working visas for their staff members. Now, the issue around this is that these workers, number one, added to the economic value of Georgia. They were also set to train even local residents, train them and transfer skills. So it was meant to be a very beneficial relationship to the United States of America, such that the plane that was taking them back to South Korea was delayed, as White House was still trying to negotiate with South Korea as to how to manage this situation. Maybe it was ill thought or not well thought as to the disturbance it would cause the economic activity of Georgia. For instance, the battery plant, which has been hailed as a brilliant investment by South Korea into the American economy, is set to now be delayed and set back by a few months as a result of this action. What also irked the South Korean people was the way in which they treated the men. They were held in shackles and they had handcuffs as if they were common criminals. And this was the same criticism that was given to the Trump administration or to the Americans in the way they treated migrants. People who violate visa terms are not criminals. They're not men who have come to work, invest in your country, and now being taken away and treated as if they are hardened criminals. These were some of the issues. Now, the conversation would then be around, would South Korea be willing to bring back these men based on a special arrangement with the American government to give them the visas that they need to work? Trump, in his Truth Social post, had said, we welcome investment and we welcome workers from abroad as long as they come and work here legally, and also in his American First agenda, which is fair enough, that they should give American people the jobs at this time. But they cannot do the job. They cannot. That's why there is
we'll
some...
see if they can
yes,
do the job.
They cannot do the job. They cannot. You can train them. You can have a timeline for training the American people, but currently they cannot do it. So, with his American First policy, would he make moves to actually hurt the American economy, as we've seen with his tariffs, as we've seen with this new action, in order to put America first? I don't know how this would work out, but I don't think this is the end of this at all. South Korea will still continue the dialogue with America. It's a mutually benefiting arrangement, and I think we need to emphasize that for migration. It's not always people coming to America to try and feed off America. There's also a benefit to the American economy too.
Exactly, and it's actually good to see South Korea take its own citizens back. Okay, we'll send a plane and bring our people back.
Dignity as well, and I'm glad about that.